Gero here for Umbra Games with a review of Rez-Infinite, played on PlayStation 4, wait for it, on PSVR, but can also be played in VR on PC with the Vive and Oculus Rift. One advantage of PSVR is I can still record gameplay, although it's slightly different than normal as you can see, perhaps a little shifty. Leave me some comments and let me know if you find it too disorienting, or it makes you motion sick. Since this is my first VR review, I'm going to kind of share the Rez-Infinite review with my stance on VR as a whole, as well as an explanation of how I will attempt to objectively review virtual reality games as I begin that journey. Anyway, Rez. The game originally came out on Dreamcast overseas in 2001, but didn't make it stateside until 2002 and only on PlayStation 2, being a bit rare at that. The game is a rail shooter, a journey through a computer networking system, its graphics being a various assortment of wireframes and polygons. You can't control or dodge incoming projectiles, but instead use a cursor and highlight up to 8 targets at once while holding down the X button, and releasing to fire both enemies and their shots. Now, I know what you could be thinking at this point, the mechanics are basically that of a mobile game or some such. And while I will admit this game isn't for everyone, what's so appealing with Rez are its synesthetic qualities, the blending of what you hear with what you see. Every lock and fire and consequent destruction of target adds noise and sound to the game's electronic soundtrack. While I own the game on PlayStation 2, even though it only takes a bit over an hour to complete, I'm not sure that I actually ever did. It became sort of a cult hit and was only available in limited quantities, and I remember finally picking it up and feeling slightly underwhelmed. Then again, I was a poor college student without a decent surround sound system. Now let's flip over to VR a little bit, and I would have to say this current iteration of virtual reality that I've experienced at this point is kind of just a novel peripheral. It's like playing Duck Hunt on NES with a light zapper, or Gun Con on PS1 with Lethal Enforcers. Or, one of those plastic guitars in the Rock Band and Guitar Hero way. I don't want to consume all of my games like this. And in fact, most games I've seen so far that are available for it are fairly shallow experiences without much depth at all. While the ones that do have depth, like the upcoming Skyrim VR, seems like they'd be a pain to wear a headset for that many hours in a session. I'm well aware that of the VR headsets out there that PSVR is the weakest, technologically speaking, but as a primary console gamer, this was the only choice for me. All that said, Rez-Infinite is the kind of thing VR is made for. With the subwoofer turned up and the music enveloping me, with the cursor tied to where I looked instead of just an analog stick, this game was an experience all to itself. Now the core of Rez-Infinite is played through 5 levels, and at first each must be played to unlock the next. The levels have 10 layers that can be traversed through by finding and shooting a floating cube. At the end of each level, you're confronted with a unique boss whose weak points must be targeted and destroyed. There are blue evolution polygons that can be grabbed, and when enough are collected to fill a bar in the lower left, you can transform your rudimentary wireframe body into more and more advanced shapes, signifying enlightenment. But all that can be taken away as hits will delevel you back to your previous form. And some of the boss levels in particular can actually get a bit difficult to see what's hitting you when, and with the possibility of tons of projectiles on the screen at once, and a maximum lock count at 8, can provide some difficult moments. There are red polygons as well that charge your overload, and you can unleash these to do a screen clearing attack. Now it's weird to say, but each wireframe environment actually has a very unique feel, and comes with different types of enemies. Your journey deeper and deeper into the machine climaxes in a beautiful sequence of the evolution and eventual immigration of man, before a final liberating confrontation. Rez-Infinite also adds an entirely new stage to the game called Area X that can be selected from the main menu. Instead of just being a rail shooter, you can actually look where you want to fly and press the R1 button to accelerate in that direction and R2 to stop. Area X was actually built using the Unreal Engine, and the particles from enemy explosions are far more colorful and plentiful, leaving the wireframe realm and looking more like an intense fireworks display. Gameplay in Area X otherwise remains largely the same, targeting basically anything that moves and destroying it. There is an easy mode called Traveler that allows you to go through the entire game without fear of dying if you end up getting too frustrated at some point. And if you're looking for a little more replay value, there are various score attack modes where you can replay stages to try to reach higher and higher numbers. Now, I personally wasn't familiar with any of the artists and DJs that composed the soundtrack, but each tune really provides a unique layered track that helped create the overall experience. During moments of lower action, when I wasn't aiming on any targets, I often still found myself bobbing my head to the music. Now, it looks like IM8-Bit had some physical copies in stock still, if you're wanting a physical PS4 copy. Again though, Rez-Infinite can be played straight to TV without VR, definitely isn't the best way. As the recent publisher of this version of the game, Enhanced Games, seems they basically formed the company just to get this game out in VR. So if you own a headset and at least like some electronic music, you're doing yourself a disservice by not checking this game out. But from a gameplay perspective, Rez is a bit shallow. The wireframe graphics are what the early 90s movies showed us hacking would be like, and the enemies are polygons like Star Fox and its VFX chip. So this game is best played not approached as a true game, but more like an experience. Rez-Infinite will be rated as a rail shooter for my scoring, but I've been wondering as I started reviewing VR games if I shouldn't start some type of VR rating scale in addition, talking about how vital VR's role is within it, its level of immersion, and what we gain by strapping extra equipment to our head. So we'll start with the rail shooter score. Rez hits a 46 out of 100. Now with virtual reality game ratings, I'm going to look at 5 different factors that so far seem to be the most important in judging what I consider a good VR experience, and go with this rating system of 5 stars. Here's the categories with some questions that I ask myself. Immersion. Does the game take you away? Do you find yourself reaching for objects that aren't there? When you think of the game later, do you find your brain recalling what was all around you and imagining what's behind you? Play control. Does the game control how you would expect? Is the depth perception solid? Does your cursor go where you want? Do your objects tend to twitch when you're controlling them? Necessity of VR. Is the game truly improved by the addition of depth, or is it kinda gimmicky? Does the game gain anything by applying virtual reality? Interactivity. Are you doing things? Does it truly qualify as a game? Quality. Is it shovelware? Does it feel like a game that someone just rushed out the door? Is the gameplay lacking where it feels like the company just wanted to have a score on the virtual reality game board? In answering all these questions for Rez, it gets a pretty strong 5-star rating for the VR experience. This is what the tech was made for. This is Gero for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Follow along as I start some VR experiences, trying to discern if the medium in this state has a future by subscribing to the channel, or I'll tweet from @UmbraGames when new videos are posted.